Okay, here we are with Kendall. Kendall, welcome to the Defiant. It's great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So Kendall Cole is the co-founder of Proximity Labs, a research and development firm focused on the NEAR ecosystem. NEAR has been one of the standout layer ones in the past few months. So it will be exciting to hear what the latest in that ecosystem is. So Kendall, maybe we can just start on a brief overview of NEAR. There's, definitely a lot of competing layer ones out there. So what makes NEAR stand out?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so from the beginning, we've really always aimed to have NEAR be very focused on user experience and developer experience. That's definitely evolved over time. And I think like the needs of both users and developers in the broader crypto ecosystem has evolved quite a bit in the 4 or so years that we've been live. Lately, we've been really focused on this concept called chain abstraction. And there's basically different reasons for these different groups that matters. So for users, it's about two things. There's crypto native users. They want to know that blockchains are being used, but they want the interactions between multiple blockchains to be as seamless as possible. And on the other hand, you have new users to the ecosystem at all. They might not even really care that crypto is being used in the product that they're trying to engage with. So for them, they may not even want to know that a blockchain is being used, or if it is, they want the experience to feel as familiar and simple as possible. So that's kind of the user group in chain abstraction. Then on the developer side, what a lot of developers have kind of had to rectify in their head is that there's actually several appealing options when it comes to building with different chains. And there's also chains like Bitcoin that have been around for a long time that are quite limited in their sort of programmability and expressibility. So what we try to enable for these developers is the ability to either not have to kind of choose a single blockchain when you're building your application. You can actually use a tech stack we're working on called chain signatures to really make your protocol chain agnostic and able to interact with every blockchain. Or you can build for a specific blockchain like Bitcoin and use the smart contract and the enhanced programmability of something like NEAR in order to create financial products or different, more kind of powerful products specifically for that ecosystem. So it's really about like having maximum choice, maximum flexibility for both users and developers. And that's really what we've been focusing on a lot at NEAR.
Awesome. Okay, so you mentioned chain abstraction, chain signatures. Would you say those are core aspects of what makes NEAR different?
Definitely. Yeah. I would say that especially lately, we found that this has been like a massive kind of boon to developers. And developers are, at the end of the day, for layer one blockchains, our customers are actually developers. Now their customers are users. So we very much take the sort of B to B to C mindset. But really, like if we solve the problems of developers, we get really powerful applications built that attract users. That's how we win.
Makes sense. And can you dive a bit deeper on what these things are, chain abstraction and chain signatures?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of recap sort of the chain abstraction idea, it really means just simplifying interactions with blockchains. And that does mean a few things today. I think like that does for some users who are very new, it means hiding is the painful parts of a blockchain, like gas hiding, a lot of the different interactions with a chain, maybe like complicated wallet management, managing assets across different chains, like hiding that part for kind of newer users. For the more experienced users, it's about using multiple blockchains simultaneously as painless as possible. And then on the developer side, it's really about building for multiple blockchains as easy as possible. Or if you want to focus on a single one, like for instance, Bitcoin, making that experience as easy as possible too. So it's really about simplicity. Like chain abstraction more than anything is just simplicity, good user experience, good developer experience. The other one was chain signatures. Yes, sorry, to explain chain signatures. So the very simple description of chain signatures is that it enables smart contracts to sign transactions for any blockchain, really every single blockchain that exists today and that ideally will exist. The reason that this works is that we basically have a special service called a multi-party computation network, where we have a group of operators. Currently, it's 8. That'll be expanded to hopefully close to 40 or more over time, that each hold part of a key and are able to work together to basically create a valid signature for each of the unique NEAR accounts or smart contracts that exist, and only for that contract, meaning that or account. So if you have a given NEAR account, only you can request a signature from this kind of group of operators for a specific address on a specific blockchain. And that could be an address on every single blockchain, which is kind of the key unlock there. And so the idea is that as long as a certain threshold of these MPC operators agree that a signature request from you is valid, and then work together to sign using only their part of that kind of unique key for you, then they'll be able to deliver back to you also on the Near blockchain a valid signature. So what this means is that we have kind of a perfect audit log of you as a user or a smart contract, if this is a contract that's like custodying Bitcoin or something, requesting to do something on a given blockchain. And we also have the audit log of that request being fulfilled, posted back on the blockchain so that we can keep these operators honest. So there's three major use cases that we've seen developers start to build around. One is this idea of DeFi on Bitcoin and other non-smart contract chains. The other is this idea of protocol or chain agnostic DeFi. A really good example of this is oracles. Most oracles, they bring a verified price feed on chain, and then they want to serve any consumer or interested consumer of that price feed. And this tends to include protocols and applications on basically every chain you can think of. So for them, like what we offer enables them to basically bring their verified price feed onto one chain, but then consumers from any other chain out there can easily sort of consume and pay them for this verified price feed. And that same pattern can be extended. And then last but not least is, of course, the idea of having one account that you can use to control assets and easily manage assets on every single chain. So if you're like a prolific user, or even kind of a normie who wants to hold like Bitcoin, XRP, and ETH and Sol, you're able to do that with just one single account, and even paying for gas fees on these different chains using one asset, which might be a stablecoin.
That's super interesting. And so I understand chain signatures went live very recently, last month. So these use cases are they kind of, what's the timeline for them to come live? I imagine they're just starting to get built, but yeah, what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, what's cool about what we're enabling is that it's very much a new design space. So we have dozens of teams who are building completely new applications, or at least applications that look quite different from what exists. So it does extend the timelines a little bit. We're going to see the first wave of applications coming live this month. Keep an eye out for Token 2049. I won't reveal who because that's their thunder, but we'll see a couple going live this month. We've got another slate going live next month, and some really exciting stuff, particularly in the Bitcoin ecosystem we're excited about. And then by the end of the year, we expect to have probably 10, 15 plus live applications that users will be able to interact with, and quite a few more in the pipeline going live in Q1 2025 as well. So
I think the combination of chain abstraction and chain signatures hopefully can unlock a really seamless user experience for people using crypto, right? Like if you can have a wallet that doesn't require you to pay for like signed transactions and pay for gas in kind of the native token, and you can also hold assets in that are native to many different blockchains. I think that's just like just like the base case that anyone coming from Web 2 would expect, right? Just like, okay, I just have a wallet with assets, and doesn't matter where they come from in them, and I don't have to be signing any kind of weird thing or like doing any kind of behavior that's not normal to any Web 2 wallet. So I think it's pretty interesting. I'm excited to see what that looks like, and if that does become just like a widely used or the way that a lot of people interact with blockchains, what is Near's role in this future, like in this vision of crypto, where people are just like holding any sort of wallet and using Near's chain, any sort of asset, and interacting with crypto in this way? What does Near's role in this future look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I would describe Near's role as kind of the glue between all of these other chains that exist. In many cases, users will just need to interact with Near. We have a lot of exciting applications built directly on Near itself. But obviously, there's way more applications built on all the other chains because we're stronger together than we are apart. And so the way I kind of envision Near is like, Near is the layer where, like, if you're a developer, you know that if you build on Near and you have your protocol built on Near, your users will not be limited to just one blockchain or even one layer two or anything. Like, because we support such a low level primitive like that is the cryptographic signing, that really powers like how you move things around, or actually it's really, that's what control is on a given blockchain more than anything. So because we support that, you will be able to like build these applications that then really interact with anything that exists on any other blockchain. And so this is a really great base for wallets, for instance. And we have a couple of teams building, very excited teams building passkey based wallets. So like, you can just use your phone or any of your devices, especially if you're an Apple user, it's incredibly seamless, to sort of, without having a seed phrase, interact with a bunch of and sign transactions for a bunch of different applications, including Bitcoin, which like previously that wasn't possible because they don't obviously support necessarily that signing standard. And so we'll see a lot of wallets that'll be using this. We'll see a lot of applications that they don't necessarily, they recognize that they want to focus and work within these different ecosystems and like benefit from like the culture that exists around the different blockchains. But they also recognize that their product is appealing to users on a bunch of different chains and a bunch of these different cultures. And so if they build on top of Near, they can easily expand to these new chains and cultures and even focus there, but without having to rewrite their whole application, which is like quite a large investment of both time, money, resources, et cetera. And then last but not least, there are a lot of times that you want to move assets between chains, or at least exchange value between chains. And what's great about chain signatures and our pattern is because like we have this, again, you basically can support this low level signing scheme. You can actually swap like control of your ability to sign for a given key all on Near and all atomically. And so the end result is what this means is that if you want to trade, say, your Bitcoin on the Bitcoin network with my ETH on the Ethereum network, rather than having to use bridges or like have any kind of representation of the value, you and I can just directly swap control of our accounts. And all of a sudden I will be able to sign and move your Bitcoin, which is now my Bitcoin effectively. And you'll be able to do the same thing with my Ethereum. So I very much, we see kind of Near as like the glue that kind of helps all of these chains like come together, helps all these accounts come together, helps all of these assets come together, and just, makes it more of like one kind of broader ecosystem, not just like a bunch of fragmented ecosystems that like each exist kind of individually.
Super interesting. It's an interesting vision. Talking to people from different ecosystems, some do take a more maximalist view of, like this chain is the one that will hold like most value transfers, and maybe there will be some adjacent other chains doing some like very specific thing, but like no, like my chain is the one that'll win or whatever. But interesting to see kind of your vision of Near being kind of the glue of many valuable ecosystems.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that there is value in maximalism in the sense that like that does help you create a really powerful culture, and I think I think some of the blockchains I think who are thinking of things in kind of the right way for like the future proof way are very big believers in that. I think Berachain has done a really good job of specifically that. It's like they're obsessed with like creating their own kind of culture, and that makes sense. However, the reality of it is that that's only going to appeal to a really specific set of people, and that's fine, right? I think that like there's something to be said for actually there are some really valuable niches that you can just like only own that niche, and that's still like creating a ton of value and is like worth doing. But if we were going to realize the kind of broader vision of like crypto does at least appeal to some subset of like the mass market, even if it's like a very specific subset like stablecoins or something like that, we are going to need interactions between a lot of different blockchains. And so I think we don't want to force developers to like have to go all in on like a culture that ends up not actually being right for them. And that's like one of the first choices they have to make, which feels not exactly right. It's fine if they make that choice eventually, but that's one of the first choices you have to make that feels dangerous. So I think what's really cool about our solution is that you can actually use it as a way to sort of try out these different cultures without having to, rewrite your entire application and throw everything out and waste another 6 or 12 months and a bunch of money on audits and all of that. But you can still potentially benefit from, really aligning with the specific culture, because again, there are benefits to that. But yeah, you're not locked in. I think we reduced the lock-in quite a bit, which I think is really powerful. Very
cool. What's Near's approach to scaling? Like, as ecosystem grows, different blockchains have tried to make the base layer more scalable, and others have had to go to kind of layer twos. In what happens in Near's case?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've kind of been one of the few ecosystems that's been all in on this idea of sharding, like basically making it so that each validator does not have to necessarily verify every single transaction directly. And this has been kind of part of our scaling thesis from day one. And we've learned a lot along the way, but I think we actually have delivered on it. And very recently, the kind of like true sort of sharding pieces went live with what we call like phase 2 of Nightshade, which is our sort of approach. And the really cool, I think, update to that is this idea. It's been around for a while, but no one had really put it into production yet, of stateless validation. And what this means is that we basically recognize that it does make sense for different entities will have different resources, different goals, different capabilities from each other. Some will have more, some will have less. And what this means is we can actually create separate roles for these different entities. They can work together to create a still trustless and permissionless, incredibly neutral layer. So what we do is we have this like state witness, which is going to be the more resourced institution that basically keeps entire, like as much history of the blockchain as possible, in existence. And then you have what's called like a chunk producer, which is like a less resourced institution, or potentially someone with a phone or like a laptop or something like that eventually, who can basically, they can witness transactions coming in, but they don't necessarily have to keep the whole state. And so they can basically ask the state producer, state witness to attest to the fact that like the state transition is valid. So they have like the execution. This other group has kind of like the state, and they can work together to then like verify that a block and the transactions within a block are actually correct. And with one of the cool sort of outcomes of this is that it makes it very straightforward for us to like basically divide up and even like rotate very frequently which groups of these actors are working on which shard at a given time. And so what's really different about near sharding implementation than some of the others, and even some of the ones that were theorized in Ethereum, is that they actually all end up producing one single canonical blockchain. And we also like, we don't act like shards are basically considered temporary. Like you could be your application, your smart contract can be on a shard at one time, and then in the next block or epic or whatever frame at the time can actually shift over to a different shard, which means that as like different applications become more or less popular, or like the system is able to kind of rearrange them in a way that kind of reduces like sort of these state or execution hotspots that arise when a particular application gets really popular. That doesn't mean that like if a particular application gets really popular on Ethereum, then the whole chain kind of suffers. But with with our approach and with the sharding approach, that really hot application can move over to its own shard, get kind of the full throughput of a single shard, and every other application cannot have to sort of suffer from like the lag caused by the main application. So that's sort of our approach, and I think that's been like one like huge aspect. One of the biggest differences, and this gets into more of like how we're seeing scaling evolve across the whole industry. We made it a very intentional decision that developers did not have to ever know or care about which shard their application is on. What this meant, like one of the consequences of this is that cross-contract interactions on Near are asynchronous. And that's a very different pattern than a lot of developers have historically been used to. But I think what we've seen in the industry now is that with all these L2s and even like application-specific L2s, it turns out that asynchronous communication between even applications is actually going to be more or less the expectation. And so we baked that in from day one. So what's great is our ecosystem has kind of been prepared for this and is like started to build up some best practices around this type of communication from very early on. And so I think now we're kind of seeing that the benefits have sort of arisen of doing that, in that a lot of our ecosystem is like pretty prepared for this and is like really at the forefront of thinking about how you re-architect your application to prepare for like any type of different, scaling issues that you might run into.
Have you run into any scaling challenges so far?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we have a couple of applications that, themselves do millions of transactions per day, or have like, hundreds of thousands or even millions of users or at least accounts to interact with them on a daily basis. And so we've had to do a couple of like sort of like rapid reshardings where like the core team proposed an update to the validators of like, hey, this application all of a sudden is really popular and that's actually bogging down the rest of the network. Let's move it to its own shard and alleviate that pressure. And they're able to do that pretty like successfully, I think 3 separate times now. What's great is like where the fairly short term roadmap here is to actually make this process entirely dynamic, which means that there won't have to be kind of like a manual sort of proposal made to the validators to upgrade as this happens or swap things as this happens, but that'll happen more just naturally as part of the network. The network grows. So yeah, no, we've definitely experienced some battle tests, but we've been able to alleviate it. And that's why we're very confident that, that directionally this approach is the right one.
And it sounds super interesting. This approach of having this shift of applications between shards be something that happens automatically. Very cool. Okay, and then I wanted to ask you about Near's AI focus. So I did a video in the show a couple of months ago. And yeah, like that was a big thing. And so yeah, just wondering how that fits into this, chain abstraction, chain signatures roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, I think that the thesis of the AI sort of focus of Near is really that we expect that the most common consumer or interactor with blockchains will be AI agents of some sort. I think a lot of people have this sort of view. The timelines or it always differs, but it feels like there's kind of broad agreement that probably, and this is probably not even limited to blockchains, but like every single API the main consumer will tend to be AI agents, probably on behalf of people, institutions, or whatever. So that sort of is like why there began to be this focus of like, okay, we actually have to get really serious about this because this is probably going to happen quicker than people expect, and we need to make sure that like Near as a layer one is prepared for this eventuality and is able to handle that. So that's actually was part of the reason. There were like two major reasons that we like really started to focus on the idea of chain abstraction. One is it was just requests from our developers and users. I think Near is always like focused on kind of like the net new to crypto user, and a lot of people just get confused. And so like we had a lot of developers who were like, how do we address this? And so that like led us down this path. And then on the developer side, it was the conversations of like, okay, how do we choose which chain? So like both those things were part of the half of the reason we went towards this chain abstraction vision. But the second part of the half was like, well, if you make the assumption that it's going to be AI agents who are the main interactor with a blockchain, then well, one, they're probably going to want to interact with a bunch of different blockchains. So like having like a single platform where they can do that and interact with every single blockchain makes a lot of sense and would be like a great entry point for these different agents. And two, you really want smart contracts to be able to, sign transactions themselves. And without something like this MPC network and chain signatures, that is not possible. You can't do that, right? Like the smart contracts on every other chain, they cannot sign transactions directly, right? They can interact with the smart contracts, but they can't actually like sign a payload. And so having this primitive is really powerful with like unlocking a lot of different programmable use cases for AI agents and like creating this sort of layer that agent builders can point their agents to that then can do basically anything you can imagine with cryptography, not even just with blockchains, but like anything that uses public key, private key cryptography. Now AI agents can actually interact with. So that's why like we kind of see those two sides. Like really first step one is like build the ultimate platform for the eventual future where it is AI agents. And then separately, I guess not quite step two, but like as part of that initiative is like actually build the AI agents themselves and like work with all of the great teams that are doing that, helping them kind of deliver the best possible products so that like Near becomes the best base for this type of future that we expect will become increasingly common.
Wow. Sounds like, I don't know. from another planet, like AIs, like robots interacting with blockchains, like signing things on their own.
True.
Very cool. We'll see how that looks like. Okay. And then to start wrapping up, what are the near term milestones that you're most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, so I spend most of my time kind of on the chain abstraction side and the chain signature side. So getting these applications live, there's some really, really exciting things that some developers are building, and I'm just excited for users to get a crack at them. So yeah, I mean, personally, I love the idea. I mean, Bitcoin is kind of what started all of this, right? And so I love the resurgence that's kind of happened in the Bitcoin builder community. And it's been really like just fun to kind of have this set of tools that we can throw these like passionate kind of new wave of Bitcoin builders at to then like deliver these really, really exciting things that, really are like really uphold the kind of original values of crypto, which is like, credibly neutral money, credibly neutral financial products, like, all of those kind of things. So I think next month we're going to see some of these first kind of Bitcoin focused applications go live, and I couldn't be more excited to see how people respond to them.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to that. Yeah, and then to wrap up, where can people go who are starting out in Near? Where do you recommend they start their journey with?
Yeah, if you're a developer, go to docs.near.org and you can check out the chain signature section, or really anything. I mean, Near at the end of the day is a programmable layer one, so anything is possible. So I'd say definitely recommend going there if you're a developer. If you're a user, I mean, I think Near.org as a whole does a pretty good job of kind of walking people through the journey, so that can be a pretty great place. But also check out some of the popular applications. Like Rev Finance is a really good job of acting as a bridge aggregator. So if you need to move assets to Near, that's a great place to do that. But yeah, I think Near.org is a good resource.
Awesome. Well, Kendall, thank you so much for joining me. This was a great conversation. And really excited to see all the new chain signatures and chain abstraction based applications coming live on Near in the very near future.
Okay, thanks for having me.